Hey guys, welcome back to Hands-On channel. Today we're going to go over some of the tools that I think are important for someone that's just getting started out. Maybe you don't know a lot about different tools that you're going to need as a homeowner, as a homesteader, just as a prepper, as somebody that wants to work on your own cars. So coming up in this video, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff, and I'm going to go over the things that I think I use the most, the tools that I think are they don't sit on the shelf here in the shop. They're the ones that get used the most often. Okay, first up, we're going to talk about the very basics. You need a good set of wrenches. If you don't have the money to invest in a good set of wrenches, you could always get a crescent wrench or a few crescent wrenches to start out with just to get you by. But I recommend that eventually you're going to need to get a nice set of combination wrenches like these. And what that means is one end is an open end and the other end is a boxed end. You're going to need that. You're going to need screwdrivers. These are some fairly cheap ones, but they've worked well for me. You can see I've got a tubing cutter there. That's something that's pretty handy. I don't use it really super often, but if you're doing plumbing, and especially if you're dealing with any copper, you're going to need something like that. Some scrapers and stuff up above that. I've got a ball peen hammer over there to the right. Channel locks and vice grips and stuff like that. Those are going to be very important tools to add to your toolbox. There's times when a bolt is rounded off, you have to have those vice grips or maybe a pair of channel locks to get you through. And you see I've got some wire cutters and some pliers and stuff like that over there, and needle nose pliers, magnifying glass up there. That's mainly because my eyes aren't as good as they once were. Level marking devices, some straight edges, whether that be get back over to that, whether that be an aluminum one like this one here, or I've got a couple of wooden, just yardsticks that I've got there. Those are great for certain things. We'll get down on the bench here. Let's go over here. We'll start out with the hand tool side. This stuff here, I've got a Corona saw. This thing, it's probably the best pruning saw I've ever had. So if you need to limb trees or just take care of some basic small stuff, nothing bigger than about I'd say about I've cut some 4-inch limbs with it, but it wasn't nice. That would have been better to get a chainsaw at that point, but it did it. And it will cut through in this area here. We have a lot of oak wood and stuff like that, so it's very hard, and it'll cut right through that stuff. Another thing you want to look for, I really have been impressed with this, but one of these Japanese style saws, I got this one from Harbor Freight for $10. Love this thing. And in fact, a little mini funny story here. We were out off grid one time, and my wife, I looked over and she was cutting a piece of James Hardie board, which is cement fiberboard, with this thing. And I was like, no, don't do that. It'll dull it up, but I checked it out and it was still okay. And I was like, oh gosh, how many pieces of that did you cut before I saw you? She was like, oh, I don't know. I lost count. So who knows how many pieces of Hardie board, cement fiberboard, this thing has cut through, and it still cuts wood fairly good. I can tell it's not as good as it was when I first got it, so I probably will replace this one, and maybe I'll write like other on the blade or something like that, or on the handle down here, and I'll use this on things that I don't want to use my nicer one on. And eventually I may get a real one. I may look at that. Some of the comments indicated they're not as expensive as I thought they were. It's slipping my name right now, but I'll insert it in here in the text. But yeah, this has been a handy saw for $10. Couldn't live without one of these right here, a hacksaw. Now this one's seen a lot of miles. You can see it's pretty beat up. I even had to put a screw in here to make the blade work on it at one point. But anyways, yeah, got to have a hacksaw. Measuring devices, I really like these speed squares. You can get one in aluminum. This is a cheap plastic one. It's worked fine for me. Another little speed square type of a device. It's adjustable. If you don't know about these, you can adjust it to any length you want. But next up, we have the Stanley Fat Max. That's a great tape measure. If you don't know about these, I think they'll go to 10 or 11 foot without snapping without the tape actually bending over, so you can pull this thing out and do a lot of measurements yourself that you wouldn't be able to do with a cheaper one that didn't have that ability. We'll look over here, look past the drill here. Next up is a good torch, a good bottle torch. And you can see I've got both different kinds of gas. The propane is for your brazing and stuff like that. If you need to braze copper pipe, or if you need to heat up something for, like a stuck bolt or something like that, that's great for that sort of thing. A lot of times you can apply heat to a rusty bolt and it'll help break the thing loose without breaking it off inside of whatever you're trying to work on. So remember that. But the MAP gas is for when you need to get it red hot or white hot. So it's just a little bit hotter. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know what the stuff is. They just call it MAP gas. It's more expensive, but it burns hotter. So if you need that, you can use that. And then I kind of glazed over it a little before, but there's times when you need more persuasion. So a good big crescent wrench like this one can help you out. If you've got something like many times trailer hitches, the ball hitch on a trailer hitch will get stuck on there from rust and stuff, and you'll need to use something like that to break it loose. Of course, another trick I've learned is buy you an expensive bottle of this stuff here. It'll probably last you your life. It's called Never Seas, and put it on anything like that's going to corrode and get stuck like that. And especially if you've got dissimilar metals, that a lot of people don't know that, but if you're screwing a steel bolt into aluminum, then when you have dissimilar metals, they can bond together and get stuck just because they're dissimilar. So you put some of that Never Seas on there, and that'll help to prevent that from happening and make your life a little easier. Next up, just a basic pipe wrench like this. This is not a great big one. It's a 14. There have been times I've wished I had a bigger one, like when I had a stuck nipple on my water heater. I had to twist off of there, but I was able to put enough cheater bar on the end of this thing to make it happen. So you need that for any kind of plumbing repairs. You'll get into a situation where you'll need something like that. We kind of passed over it here, but a good portable drill like this. And I was able to get this in a 2-tool kit and included the impact driver. I saw a great deal on these. It was like $100 for both of these with batteries. That didn't come with that red battery. I added that separately later. But anyways, these have been great. I've beat on them, used them to hang a whole bunch of siding. You can see that in some of my other videos. Just done lots and lots. Ran hole saws with them. Had no problem with that drill. It's been fantastic. This thing here, this is the game changer. This thing gives you the ability, if you don't know, if you've got one of these impact drivers, you can take lug nuts off your vehicle without breaking your back. And in fact, they're so handy that I've actually thought about running one in a vehicle, especially if you have somebody, that's maybe like your wife or your daughter that doesn't have the strength to break some of these lug nuts loose. This could be a game changer for people like that. So this, it's a strength multiplier, and I love that. And I've used it many times to bail me out of a situation. Next up is this grinder. It's a Porter cable grinder. I've had the thing for probably 15-20 years. It wasn't real expensive. It's a 7.5 amp grinder. But this thing, if you don't know about grinders, you can cut metal. You can polish metal. You can remove rust. This here is a flap disc that's on there. It's great for paint and rust removal and stuff like that, and prepping your metal for welding and things like that. So if you wanted to get into that, but it's just, this thing here is just, I've done so much with it. I've cut miles and miles of metal with this thing. So, and polished it and grind it on it, whatever. There's hard grinding stone discs you can get, or cutting discs of different thickness. There's just a lot of versatility with this. There's wire brush wheels you can get to attach to them. And I have all of those, and they're great. These flap wheels are fantastic for certain things like metal prep. So got to have one of these. Another one that's kind of like that. I've had this one probably 15 or 20 years also. Move that out of the way. Just a standard skill saw. This one is an 11 amp. with a general purpose construction blade on there, and it's been fantastic. I've never had any issues with it. There's been a couple times if I'm making a real long cut that I've bound it up and stuff like that. But usually that means you need to put some wedges in, you know, like if you're ripping a long piece of plywood or something, which I've had to do that with this thing several times. And I hadn't done it so much here lately, but years ago when I was practiced up on it, I could cut a really straight line just by eyeballing it with the thing, you know, because you can get good with them if you use them enough. You learn the feel of them and everything, but they can be a little scary at first if you've never operated one of these things. The main thing is, you know, just like any power tool like this, you want to keep your fingers and your delicate parts away from the business end of this thing. So, you know, and it's going to shoot dust and dirt out here, so you're going to want to wear safety glasses and be really careful. And these things, even though it's not a table saw, these things can kick back on you. They'll bite in and try to kick out of your hands, so you need to hang on to them tight. You don't want to be limp wristing it. You want to hang on to it with good, strong grip. And I'm not trying to scare you off of using one, but it's one of those things that if you know somebody that's in your life that has experience with one of these things, it would be best to have them supervise you and kind of give you some tips as you go, because it can be very dangerous. So it's one of those things to think about before you go out and just buy one and assume that it's easy to use, because there's different circumstances that can come up that it can get you hurt, or you can lose some limbs or lose some fingers and stuff. So these are just things that I think that I wish somebody would have told me years ago. This is what you need to prioritize on. You know, a lot of these other things, pliers and nippers and needle nose pliers and stuff like that, you'll pick up along the way. But a good set of wrenches, good set of screwdrivers. You know, if you're going to get into auto mechanics, you're going to need to increase that to a good set of ratchets, a good set of sockets, deep well and shallow well. You're going to also probably want to get into some half-inch drive stuff for the larger bolts and larger things like that. But this is not really, I'm not really gearing that toward that in this video. I'm just really more focused on homeowners, people, you know, things that you're going to use all the time and you're going to want to have in your toolbox, so that you can get through just about any job you need. All right, guys, I appreciate you stopping by the shop today, but it's time for you to go.